Good morning and welcome to the NBA Daily for June 5th, 2025. I'm Dave DuFour here with Baraheni. Coming up, Rylan Stiles, who covers the Thunder for Sports Illustrated and the host of Locked On Thunder, joins us to talk all things Thunder Pacers. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, guys. NBA Finals Game 1 is tonight. Rylan Stiles is here. He covers the Thunder, like I said, for Sports Illustrated and on the Locked On Thunder podcast. Welcome to the show, Rylan. Super excited to have you. Hope everything's going well.
I'm super excited to be here. I really appreciate you guys having me on. Love the show. Was excited to hear about the show getting put together this year, and so I've been listening ever since.
That's awesome, man.
Thank you.
We've been having a blast covering the entire league, and especially this Oklahoma City Thunder team. I mean, obviously, the first year of the new show, and this has sort of been the team of the show. 68 wins. It feels like every single episode we've got a nugget or two on the Thunder. What's it been like for you covering this Thunder team? I know that you're a Thunder fan. You know, that's how you got your start. But what's it been like covering this Thunder team?
It's been wild to see them grow into the team that everyone kind of danced around them being. Once they went and traded for Alex Caruso, once they went and signed Isaiah Hartenstein, they were looked upon as the favorites in the West. But if I told you that whenever Chet breaks his hip on November 10th, that they'd still be the favorites in the West at the end of it, whenever they've won 68 games now, I don't think anybody would have thought that, because at that time they didn't have a single big man healthy. So the ride of this season, I think, might get lost nationally of what all this team had to go through to get to 68 wins. Because in July, 68 wins was a bit much, but like 60 wins in the one seed was not a stretch at all. But to get to 68 with all that they dealt with, it's been really impressive to watch this team come together and fight through some adversity.
Rylan, what has been the vibes in the city over the last couple of years as this team starts to build out? Because we're in Oklahoma right now. We're seeing the excitement. It's palpable for the finals. The streetcars are all decked out.
There's a massive flag hanging up like on the side of the highway. The Thunder
OKC
flag.
Thunder flags. It's incredible. But I guess from your perspective, what have you noticed in terms of like the hype around this team over the last couple of years, and especially this season?
Yeah, there's certainly way more engagement, way more attentiveness to the Thunder this season around the city. And of course, they're starting to build back their global brand that they once had. But around the city specifically, I think that it's just a better understanding of it all now, because in 2012, everything was so new. You just thought you were expected to win at that point. With how young this NBA audience was, because like the big deal was like Dallas, like the Mavericks were a team people followed. I followed them before the Thunder got here. But a lot of people just ignored the NBA entirely. It was more of a college town. And so when 2012 happened, it's just like, oh, this is what you do in the NBA. You win games and you go to the finals. It's all fun and joy. And now that you've seen the other side of the picture, so to say, with this city, it's a greater appreciation for this team. It's a better understanding of how difficult that this was and how non-guaranteed it is. Even just you saw it within this season of when Chet splattered on the floor. I'll reference it again. You never would have thought that it'd go this great for them post that happening, and they've been able to do it. So I think that there's a higher level of engagement from the fan base, but also a higher level of awareness, understanding of appreciation what they're watching, since it's not their first time and it's not so new to them.
It feels like, with such a short tank, right? Let's call it what it was. It was a tank, but it was a short one. It was a very fast turnaround and rebuild after coming off the years of greatness. I mean, you have 3 Hall of Famers when you arrived to town, pretty much, and that's epic. Do you think, was there any worry that during the tank, if it goes on one season too long, oh no, we're going to lose the fan base? Because I know it's Oklahoma football out here first, right? So, obviously that's who they're competing with. So was there any concern there with the tank that if it didn't happen fast, if they didn't turn this thing around, that they could kind of lose momentum locally?
Yeah, I don't think that concern ever truly gained traction because of Sam Presti and because of what you have in place. But had you seen a different front office in place where you didn't have that same certainty of that they're going to figure this thing out, there would have been that concern, because it's quick that you would be discarded, I think, with if you were to turn this into a 5, 6, 7 year rebuild. But instead, it ends up being a true 2-year rebuild. And they couldn't have picked a better time where you weren't even allowed to have fans in the stands for their first season. And then their second season, you had a smattering of fans out there. And then now they're back. Once fans are back in the building, they're back in the play-in and they're back in the postseason. And you're watching this young team grow. And I think that the Thunder have consistently done things the right way to keep their fan base, where they made it very obvious within the rules, because they couldn't outright say that they're tanking. But the how many GMs will take out an op-ed in the Oklahoma and go into such great detail of what exactly Sam's looking to do, the exact players he's wanting to find, and the exact team he wants to build. And then to watch as this team got built, and you realize how much it's not a happy accident. Like, these players fit that exact archetype that he wrote about in 2019, and it's come to fruition now. I think that it also helped to usher out the Paul George and Russell Westbrook era with that spunky, fun Chris Paul team, where it's like, okay, this isn't all bad. And then it did get all bad, but again, the fans weren't allowed in the stands. So like the swiftness of the rebuild certainly helped. Also, OU not being too hot right now helps a little bit too. But like, there could have been an alternate universe where you'd have had to do a lot of rebuilding of your community, much less your team, had this spiraled on, but it didn't.
I'm glad you brought up the community aspect, because Jalen Williams today was talking about the fact that sometimes playing in OKC sort of feels like being on a famous high school team, like a really elite high school team, in the sense that everybody is so tied in and bought into the community. And you look around and it's like everybody, like we said, has the OKC flags draped everywhere. But then there's also this sense of like the team understands the community and is so bought into like being a part of that underdog mentality that it somehow translates into the on-court product of them just hustling after every deflection, hustling after every loose ball. Does that resonate? Like, is that something that actually exists, or am I just making that up?
Well, I think that all we can do is take the players' words for it, and they all say the right things and say what it means to them. Of like Shea, after winning Game 5 and winning his first conference finals and going to his first finals, he says that it was important to him, and he had extra motivation to be able to do this in front of his home crowd and give them what they deserve. And that he mentioned that after the Game 7 in Denver, one thing that stuck out to him was like, it'd be unfair for us to let this season end for the fans, because they are the ones who are out here every day. We cannot let this season end for them. And so they always have treated the fan base as if it's a huge deal. So I think we have to believe them and say that it is, because J-Dub is right. Like, if they could get off work whenever this team is flying out of cities, like whenever they're flying out to Indiana at whatever time they're going to fly out, 3 p.m. or whatever on a Tuesday, they'd be out there sending them off like they're going to state. And they always are going to welcome them home, no matter how late it is. I mean, they stood through a downpour the other day to welcome them home at the airport. Like that stuff is unique to OKC. And I thought that J-Dub made a great point to also point out it goes deeper than just that into like, now that they're stars. They did that whenever they lost the play-in tournament. They do that at the draft intro pressers. Yeah. We all know that like these teams will draft players on Thursday and then fly them in Saturday and have a press conference. Outside those hotels where those press conferences are at, whenever these guys haven't done anything for the franchise yet, they're out there like supporting them and trying to love on them and get autographs and stuff like that. And so I think that embrace is different because of what this market is, where there is no other pro sports team.
Right.
There is no other main attraction besides OU football, which is also not 100% of the state. It's most of the state, but some people like OSU. So it's like, this is the thing where everyone across the entire state loves and wraps their arms around.
There's something of, we've been all hand wringing about the small market finals, not us, because like to me, I care about the basketball. But the truth is, there's a powerful emotional connection that the small markets are allowed to have, and especially when they're built like the Thunder. You look at the Pacers, right? They've got a similar thing there, and even though they do have another pro sports team, it does feel like the fans there connect with the Pacers on a more, we can say it, I think, a more local level, right? Like, it feels like these are more real people than maybe the New York Knicks or the Lakers, just because they are, stars, right? Like, it's a little bit different when you see these guys up close. And then you come to OKC, and if you guys are listening, you haven't been to OKC to see a game, it's actually one of the best arenas in the NBA to watch basketball. I got the chance to take a friend of mine. Yeah, I took a friend of mine to see Steph Curry for the first time he'd ever seen him live against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And we were sitting in the, nice lower bowl seats. And it is, for real, one of the best fan experiences. And that ties into the whole community aspect. It does seem like the Thunder are very locked in. Yeah. And again, this is the blessing of the small market rather than the curse to me. I want to get into the basketball part of this, but first I got to take a quick break. Guys, stick around. We'll be right back after the break. Okay, Rylan, you have dove about as deep as anyone on the Thunder, for the last 5 years. You're looking at this series just like we are. What's the surprise going to be in the finals?
I think that there's two surprises, one on each end of the floor for the Thunder. How does Indiana defend SGA? And then how do the Thunder defend the Pacers? And the Thunder's defense of the Pacers, like I think a lot of people just throw that historically great defense line out there and kind of use that as their preview of the series. Yes, they're historically great. And this Thunder defense is awesome. And I'm not going to be the one to question how good they are. But what's been their one thing that they do let up? Because Mark's been open and honest about how in the modern NBA, it's impossible to take everything away. These players are too good. For 2 straight years, they've conceded wide open corner threes. And if the Pacers can keep the turnovers down, which is a great stat that they're the best turnover keeping team, if they keep those down, and I really trust Haliburton as a playmaker, but also I think it's underrated a little bit, is when he gets the ball out of his hands, I like a lot of the Pacers as secondary playmakers to keep the ball moving and then break down some rotations on top of the rotations that you willingly surrender to the corners. Indiana can get red hot from 3. And does that force a young head coach, first time in this setting, to completely change what's been his identity and this team's identity for 2 seasons and stay home on those guys and shift how they defend? Or do they double down on it? Or does it actually work right out of the gate? I think that the stress test of Mark's identity will be here today, because you saw it last year. You can boil down that Maverick series to a few different things, most notably the Thunder not having a backup center, but also they got burned by letting guys shoot from the corners, and they didn't get burned with that same format by Denver. They didn't get burned with that same format by Minnesota. So will they get burned this time against Indiana, who's been shooting the ball from 3 better than those 2 teams have by a long shot in this postseason? And then how the Pacers defend the SGA with all the different ways Rick Carlisle can approach it, with the different ways that he's approached it this season against guys. Like, I don't think you can just treat him like Donovan Mitchell and just tell him to knock himself out and go score as much as he wants, because he's much better than Donovan Mitchell. But by that same token, do you cross-match Myles Turner onto Lou Dort and just say, if Lou Dort kills us and if he's our PJ Washington, we'll live with it? Or and leave him at the rim? Do you put Tress Nimhard on him? How much do you want to help? I think that ideally, if I was Rick Carlisle, I'd keep Turner at the rim, and just if Lou Dort wins the finals, then it was never meant to be. I would keep Haliburton in the deep corner, and then have our 3 best defenders, Nimhard being point of attack on Shea, and then our other 2 best defenders like a Nesmith and a Siakam on the slots to kind of dig in and gap on Shea whenever he tries to get to the elbow. And I'd have the pickup point be lower. I would not pick Shea up anywhere before he gets to the free throw line extended area. I think that you saw Minnesota in the tail of that series, their big win in game 3, they picked him up much lower. Why they didn't do it besides game 3, and why they didn't do it outside of game 3, I'll never know.
I mean, honestly,
you cannot pick Shea up too high.
Denver did something similar too, and obviously crowding SGA and forcing obviously the rest of the other guys to beat him. You talked about identity, and I think that's a really important part to this. It's like, which one of these teams is going to concede first? And one of the points that I think of is OKC's malleability to go 5 out with Chet or go double big. Whereas with Indiana, it's like, all right, you have the Myles Turner, Pascal Siakam look, but you also can go smaller with an Obi Toppin, Pascal Siakam look. So do you think this is going to be a series where they lean more on Chet at the 5 versus running that double big lineup to kind of keep up with Indiana, even though they both run tons on both sides of the floor?
Yeah, I could see this being a situation like the Minnesota series where the Thunder start double bigs every game. That's their starting lineup.
Yeah.
But when the final buzzer sounds and you review the minutes and the rotation, their starting lineup in minutes played was actually Chet Holmgren at the 5 by himself. So the double bigs were starters in name only. I think that this is going to be how the series goes, where the Thunder are better off with just one center on the floor at a time. The Thunder can also throw their small ball lineup out there, which is Caruso and Kenrich, and see if anything sticks with that, and scale up Dub and scale up Caruso. That's helped them in the past. But I do think that at the end of the day, they'll be better off with just one center on the floor at a time.
So I have Myles Turner as my X factor for the series. I just think that, when you look at the run that they've been on in the playoffs and the way that he's been used, I mean, he's been very important, and he's the trickiest guy, I think, for OKC to guard. His ability to stretch the floor, the way they like to bring him up as a trailer. Obviously, OKC needs to get their bigs back and get him into the paint. Who do you think they're going to guard him with? Because I've been racking my brain. I've thought, maybe they could put Shea on him, and let him play little center field off the ball. But then you got to worry about the post up mismatch. So how do they attack Myles Turner? Like, what are they going to do there?
I think it's so interesting. I would probably In the double big lineups, I would probably have Hartenstein on him and just hope that the length of Hartenstein can contest the threes and kind of make up for the ground he has to concede by positioning himself a bit further off of the 3-point line to make up for drives, opportunities, and post-ups from Turner. But in the single big lineups, I could see it being Chet and having Dub scale up to defend Siakam. And then kind of it's a seamless fit from there. You have Dort onto Halliburton. You have Kaysen as that center field type of look. Mm-hmm. You have SGA, on Nembhard, and you kind of have a better idea of how everything fits perfectly, which is why I think to East's point that they're going to have to run a lot of single big coverages. But for their main starting lineup, first possession tonight, I think that it'll be Chet onto him, or Hart onto him.
Man, I wouldn't even be surprised if they throw Caruso on Pascal.
For sure.
That's the right, because
I think that the Pascal assignment will be Caruso, Dub, those two guys primarily.
Yeah, and to me, you mentioned Myles Turner being your X factor. I think the way that Pascal gets his game going in this series might also be another X factor, because we're talking about how close can Indiana really make it, right? How are you winning on the margins? The 3-point shooting is one factor. The lineup variance is one factor. And then obviously the bigs, which I think Pascal is dead in the middle of, because the way he can kind of attack mismatches is such an important part of Indiana's offense. Are there mismatches on this OKC defense? I don't think there is. And on top of that, you have guys you can comfortably switch them out to. You have Caruso, you have J-Dub. I guess the question I have for you, Rylan, is if you were on the Pacers coaching staff, how are you attacking this OKC defense?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm an undefeated upwards head coach, so if Rick wants to cut me a check, I'd be more than happy to join the club and get a quarter zip going. But I think that if you are the Pacers, it has to be, of course, ball security and sticking to that identity of the Pacers. But you have to have the 5-out spacing as your shell. You have to have Halliburton making a quick decision to hit Siakam on the short roll. And then Siakam is my X factor, because if he's able to get a clean catch point and handle the Thunder swarming into the post on him, which is what they've done to every single big for the last 2 years, and then make the extra pass to the slot or to the corner, that's going to be wide open shot after wide open shot. And against a historically great defense, that's kind of all you can do, is trust the shot quality and trust the open looks. And even if it's not the exact guys who you would prefer to have shooting, you at least prefer the shot quality versus trying to force anything else. But obviously, if Halliburton can get going as an individual scorer, that would be huge. But just looking at the design sets and designed ways in which that you can attack this team, that would be it. Is kind of using their advantages, which is swarming in ball pressure, to make them disadvantages against OKC. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of about it, which is why it's kind of leaning so much toward Oklahoma City, because who would Halliburton call to the ball and want to have an isolation attempt against this Thunder team? So you're going to have to rely on the others, and you need the others to have big games, which, to Indiana's credit, they've had a lot of big games from their rotational players.
Yeah, and if Indiana goes small with Pascal at the 5, it honestly, which is a little bit of a wrinkle that they can bust out, OKC is even better off to go up against that, because Caruso can play up and all these other guys. I'm assuming that you've got the Thunder winning this thing. Do you want to give us a prediction on the way out?
Yeah, I'll give you the prediction. I think it's Thunder in 6. I think that the 5 and the 4 is a bit too discrediting of the Pacers. I think that the 3-point shot is the great equalizer, and there's going to be a couple of games where there's just nothing the Thunder could have done. They are going to lose that game because of how hot Indiana is. And I look back to that Minnesota game 4, which could have pushed the Minnesota series to a 6-game series. You got 20 points from everybody not named Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards. And I trust that Siakam and Halliburton will play at least a little bit better than Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards did. That's a very low bar to clear, and that will get them a couple of wins when their other players step up. But of course, the Thunder have been the best team in basketball all season long, so it'll eventually go their way, which is why you play the 7-game series. I think it will be Thunder in 6, though.
Rylan, one more thing. Can you break down your Elvis little background here for the people who might be watching on YouTube? What is the Elvis background inspired by?
Yeah, I love Elvis. This poster right here is all of his album covers ever. I have a few of his movie posters like Roustabout, which is my favorite Elvis movie. I have a Girl Happy, live a little. And then I have a President Reagan poster here too for some reason, but I do just love Elvis. I think Elvis is great. I've seen 25 of his 33 movies to this point.
Wow.
Wow.
Which favorite Elvis
That's
song?
awesome.
Oh, my favorite Elvis song, I would have to say, is probably this is a very tough one. It's like picking your favorite child. I would say
this is harder than the OKC prediction
Pretend.
right here.
This is way harder than the OKC prediction. I
Just
thought that the basketball stuff was very easy, but Just Pretend. It's a very underrated number on his less famous country album. So I would say Just Pretend.
That's a deep cut.
I love
if
it.
you're watching on YouTube, tell us your favorite Elvis song in the comments for Rylan. Rylan, thank you so much for joining us. That's going to do it for the show, folks. Finals tonight. Enjoy.
Yep.
I am so excited for this particular NBA Finals. Rylan Stiles, go and check him out. He hosts Locked on Thunder. He writes about the Thunder over at Sports Illustrated. He's going to be covering the finals. Does a really great job, and he's funny, which is so hard to do, to know hoops and to be funny. So thank you again for joining us. For Rylan Stiles, S. Baraheni, I'm Dave DuFour, and this has been the NBA Daily. Enjoy the finals.